Okay, yeah. I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying, wow, what a title, and a thumbnail too. I mean, good God, that is a lot to take in. And yeah, I'm sorry to drop that bombshell on you and practically force you to click this, but my YouTube channel is pretty much a direct conversion of my unfiltered consciousness to a video format, and this just so happens to be what my consciousness looks like right now. Anyways, I don't want outside factors to detract from what I'm covering right now, since what we're covering today is easily one of the most premier pieces of computer entertainment software ever made. Indeed, this is a big day. Today we're talking about a game, but not just any game, a real game. I've made videos before, but this is different. This is my first real video. From now on, this channel will never be the same. There will be the before, and then there will be the now. This is going to mark the beginning of Autumn 22 2.0. This game is a dish so good it's going to make every other game out there look like ice soup. This is a video I've been wanting to make since before the day I even decided to call myself Autumn 22. Today, I'm talking about a game I care about. The other games I've covered are good, but this game is different. This game could take away your suicidal ideation, it could get your parents back together, it could bring back your dead dog. Playing it could even make you not care about losing all your friends over the course of a single week. That is how fucking amazing this game is. And I can personally attest to two of those. And they're not the ones about getting your parents back together or bringing your dog back from the dead. In fact, I still have his ashes in my closet. Yes, I know what you're thinking. This is it, you're literally just pressing buttons in front of a video of an anime girl spinning in circles. With how much you were hyping this up, I was expecting the game to cure my cancer and take my pants off. Shut the fuck up. If you're like me, and by that I mean cynical, jaded, and at a point in life where nothing really makes you happy anymore, I need you to put yourself in my shoes when I first played this. It's 2018. I was a lot shorter, as I was quite a young lad at the time, and I was also rather overweight. But that's not important. I had just come to the realization that everyone I knew at the time fucking sucked, and I wasn't happy about that. Much like the average social circle many people are in during their childhood years, it was one where everything was kind of surface level, where it's not like you're really friends with the other people as much as the whole thing feeling just like a mutual understanding where everyone could get some entertainment out of doing things with everyone else regardless of whether or not you actually enjoyed one another's company or not. Either way, over time, pretty much everyone I knew ended up either falling out with me, turned out to be really racist, turned out to be a massive dick, tried to blackmail me through their Clash of Clans account, or started making lean. So then there's me. Not racist, not on Clash of Clans, and not doing lean. That is to say, I didn't have a thing. Like most of my obsessions, this started through a random YouTube video. I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was just some sort of musical or the like. So I watched the video and thought, this is cool. Anyways, 2 weeks later, I've sold my drum kit to buy tickets, and I'm having my hesitant father drive me down 720 miles to San Jose for this concert. And I remember standing there in the crowd, waving my glow stick, crying. Crying tears of joy because I had finally found not just anything, but something that had value to me. Okay, now keep that in mind and watch this. That didn't change anything for you, did it? Okay. Well... So if you're actually wondering what it is I'm talking about, this is an arcade rhythm game with very light story elements and a lot of questionable design choices that range from generally quite aggravating to endearing to actually quite funny. Basically, SEGA used to make games for this series called Project Diva featuring Hatsune Miku, and if you don't know who she is, then get the fuck out of here, okay, chump? But essentially they wanted to make another game entry into the series for more money, but they had a conundrum, probably, where they were discussing what to do with the game, saying things like, okay, so I don't really think we can just keep making more entries into the series, doing practically the same thing, but just with new sets of songs, so we're gonna need to add some big pulls to this one to get people to want to buy it. And then they went back and forth discussing all these ideas, and some of them were pretty good ideas, and some of them weren't. So I had this one shareholder saying, we need a story to captivate audiences, and then there was another guy saying, I want magical girl transformation scenes, and then you had a third guy saying, we should make character customization an integral mechanic to the game. Presumably because they released Yakuza 0 only a few years ago and subsequently realized how much the average gamer enjoys getting to coordinate outfits, makeup, and accessories for fictional women. And these three people all ended up being very influential in the game's development. So the gist of the core gameplay is that you press the buttons when the game tells you to as they fly in from all over the screen, and I'm gonna summarize this in 20 seconds because I guarantee you nobody cares, yet I feel the need to elaborate for the sake of journalistic integrity here. Basically, you need to get enough points to clear the threshold for winning. Pressing the buttons on time gives you points, and not doing that does the opposite. Both the D-pad and shape buttons on the left and right side of the PlayStation controller can be used for the corresponding buttons, and sometimes it wants you to press both at once, and sometimes it wants you to flick the sticks for other notes. Great. Anyways, I'm just gonna move straight on to the story because I can't think of how else to to structure this video. Like many of Sega's other titles, it starts out with an animated trailer to show you what the game is, except this one's not terribly accurate, nor does it really depict how you're going to play the game. It also makes it out to be that there's a story to the game when there really isn't. I mean, except there is, kind of. It's a plot in the sense that there's a narrative and characters, but it's not actually a plot. Does that make sense? It's just not terribly memorable or engaging. You know, this is something I completely forgot in the 7 years between playing this for the first time and now. You know, that it has some visual novel-esque elements. And I say esque because a lot of the staples of the medium aren't here, like, you know, branching paths, decisions that have an impact on the story, or really even, like, I don't know, established characters and intrigue, or really anything beyond a vague in-universe explanation as to why we're playing the game that we bought. So right, it starts off with this scene basically showing that something bad happened that I actually already forgot what it was between playing through this again 6 days ago and writing the script for this, where, like, the light has left the world or something, and Miku and the other ones that they don't make as much money off of merchandise for need to bring the light back through the power of friendship and also singing. Not a great or terribly unique start to a plot, since if I had $1 for each time I played a game that revolves around arbitrarily doing something to bring back the light or something synonymous with it to a world, I'd have enough to get enough gas to go back to the mall where I bought this shirt without realizing it was like, I don't know, 4 sizes too large for me, because I was in a public setting and I'm self-conscious about my interests and I didn't want anyone else to see what I was buying, so just leave me alone, okay? And yes, before we go any further, I can already hear you impishly mocking me through the other side of the monitor. Oh, I didn't know that the blue-haired girl from Fortnite had her own game! Shut the fuck up! So great, that's basically the first 15 minutes of the game. Despite being an entry into a series with a lot of prior installations and being created by a studio that generally knows how to make games pretty well, there are some quite subpar design choices on display here. Here's game design sin number 1. You can only play on easy or normal until you've already played through all the songs. The problem is that normal isn't terribly engaging. First off, there are only 2 buttons, triangle and circle. I don't know, maybe they figured 4 buttons was too complicated. Maybe they wanted this game to be accessible to 5-year-olds. Hell, even then, I feel that we're severely underestimating 5-year-olds. I mean, you got 5-year-olds playing Fortnite now, right? If one of my younger nephews can crank a 90 and dome Eminem from 200 meters away while flossing, I seriously think they can handle 4 separate buttons in a rhythm game like this. Although this game did come out in 2016, there may have been some evolutionary changes since then, but I digress. This is an unnecessary limitation and just makes the game worse. I feel like even just having a warning if you try to play a song on hard, or at least making it an option sooner, would have been great. Because if you try it and suck at it, oh, guess what? You can just go back. You can just undo it, and then it's easier. Right? I mean, we've had difficulty select options for decades at this point. Did they think players would be overwhelmed and set down the game if they found it too hard? This is especially weird considering the fact that so many rhythm game players are absolute fanatics that insist on doing everything on the hardest difficulty, sped up 20% blindfolded with one hand with that other hand tied behind their chair while also being waterboarded. I mean, if I were one of those people, I guarantee you I would have lost brain functions within the first 20 minutes of this, but I wasn't an iPad baby, so thankfully I haven't gone through that. Regardless, it's pretty annoying. I think they just wanted each person to have heard the song before playing it on a harder difficulty, but even if you've never heard a new song before, you can still do decently well just by virtue of having experience with the gameplay. I don't know. I don't understand why they felt the need to limit you to normal and easy mode even after you've already played through 25 other songs. Seriously, it's odd. And this is one of the first things that makes me think they weren't really sure what audience they wanted to go for here. It has a lot of aspects that make it frustrating for serious players and features a lot of mechanics that don't really seem to correlate with much else, but we'll get to that later. At some point, I feel like they just wanted to make a Hatsune Miku teaches typing game or something, but ended up incorporating into this, which is a shame because I would have definitely paid another $15 for that program. And in case you're wondering, easy mode only has 1 button you need to press. It's extremely unengaging to me and probably a lot of other people, but if you're trying to indoctrinate your newborn into the Vocaloid fanbase, first off, don't! It's an option for you and also, I don't know, 90 or so year olds that both want to play this game and can also handle the visuals without having some sort of medical crisis. So, yeah, it's quite easy but still fun. You know, the music definitely helps. It's kind of like reading a mediocre novel while getting a back massage, where even when what you're actively doing isn't terribly interesting, the enjoyable things going on in the background make it quite nice. Okay, now I'm gonna do a callback to something I said a few minutes ago, but don't feel bad if you don't remember, because I've been talking quite fast and this is probably really hard to follow, okay? So like I said earlier, character customization is a pretty large part of the game. Instead of having a store where you can buy the other outfits, you know, like you normally would in any setting ever, you get them through meeting certain requirements in each song. Basically, once per song, this thing called chance time starts, and you'll know because the melody notes all get these rainbow trails behind them, black bars appear at the top and bottom of the screen, and also because there's massive text that says chance time start. If you got enough of these notes right, the final note in the sequence turns rainbow, and hitting it triggers this thing where you get this magical girl-esque transformation into a different random outfit, I guess? If you miss the final note or don't get the bar up, you don't get anything. Except for an achievement, but that really only exists to mock you. Anyways, you can still lose these outfits if you fail to meet the required amount of points at the end, which also triggers this really funny thing where the characters look really disappointed as their sweet new garb gets sucked right off their back through computer magic or whatever. These outfits all have special properties, like giving you special perks and increasing your aura. Yes, that's actually what it's called. Your aura is directly tied to the percentage at which you gain voltage, which is, you know, the thing needed to actually clear each level, and that's practically it. But they take 7 minutes to explain it anyways, because, truthfully, I don't know. This game absolutely has a penchant for over-explaining things despite how simple it is at its core, which is frustrating and honestly kind of demeaning. The crux of the game's plot revolves around basically filling up the meter that lets you do more things. You got what I meant when I said plot like that, right? I'm experimenting with what I like to call audible quotation marks. And I also just did them again for those 3 words. Anyways, this is pretty much the game's biggest issue. It just feels like it doesn't want you to play it. I don't mind story-heavy games, you know, I'm fine with long scenes of dialogue and exposition. Hell, I never even skip the first chapter of Half-Life every time I replay it. But that's different because there's no story here to discuss in the first place. There's nothing to it. You're not getting intrigue, there's no world building, you don't get to watch cool robots walk around, it's just filler. Like, there's a difference between coming up to me as I'm enjoying a nice bowl of fettuccine alfredo for dinner and telling me to go outside and look at the sunset, and barging in the room, flipping the table, and yelling at me to go look at some roadkill you just found in the drainage ditch. If you're gonna interrupt the gameplay for something else, at least make the other thing of a relatively equal value to what we're missing out on. Which is kind of funny, because that's how a lot of people felt about the plot of Neon White, but I really like that aspect of the game, but that's another thing we'll get to later. So you get given 5 or so songs to play through. You make your way through, and every once in a while, one of the game characters commends you for your progress in filling up the arbitrary meter that makes the game progress. Once you fill the meter up all the way, you get to do special events called festivals. You do the festival, and then one or more of the game characters commend you for playing the game more. From then, you just pick the next song category and repeat the process. You have 5 different clouds with 6 songs each, and that's your pool. And I can already hear you saying, 30 songs? They must have a truckload of DLC songs. 2. They have 2 DLC songs. I actually owned one of these for the past couple years, but somehow lost it, so I ended up purchasing both for the sake of the footage you're seeing in the background for these 10 seconds of the video, so yeah. I guess that was $6. They're quite good songs though, but I do get the feeling they were quite rushed. One of them doesn't even have any cover art for it, so I'm just assuming either they couldn't get the rights to the illustration they wanted to use and just weren't bothered to replace it. They're not even enough to make up another cloud, right? With only 2 out of the standard 6 being there, and they don't affect any of the rest of the game, so they're completely isolated and unintegrated with everything else. Now, while 30 songs plus the 10 or so in the game's menus don't make for a terribly large soundtrack, especially when compared to a lot of other rhythm games that easily have their song counts in the dozens or maybe even hundreds, good God do they make up for it in quality. The music selection here is absolutely fantastic. The clouds are a great way to make an example of the wide range of sounds, styles, and different aesthetics that many of the individual song creators contribute to the game's soundtrack. I mean, even the menu music's nice. Here, listen. I know there's no way to play that in a manner that conveys just how warm and fuzzy hearing this makes me feel, but at the very least you can say you heard it. So yes, the songs are fantastic. The game's music is relatively varied and avoids having a majority of the soundtrack feel very similar in terms of genre or structure. Even for the songs with similar genres or that take place in the same cloud, they sound unique, and you can tell the developers put a lot of effort into picking tracks that all stand out from one another and feel distinct. One minor gripe I have is that there are quite a few of these songs that are unfitting for the areas they're put in, like how there's one song in the elegant category about accidental pregnancies, no, I'm not making that up, or a song about mental illness being listed in quirky, but I mean, who knows, you know, maybe the people at SEGA are the kind that find mental illnesses quirky. So yes, the gameplay and music absolutely make up for the game's subpar aspects. Something else I should also note is, wow, the game looks good, the visuals are good! it's pretty! I'm sure the people that started with the entries on the PS Vita are especially appreciative of that. The stages are also quite nice looking, and the visual effects and UI are also very good. The character models are also quite good. They very thankfully didn't go with the kind of uncanny and off-looking visuals of Future Tone, which, thank God, I had trouble playing that game sometimes because of how off the characters looked. They're just weird. They have more detail and textures, but like, their skin? Their faces still look anime-ish. It's this weird mix between the shapes of the characters all being anime and the textures being more detailed. They just look like plastic. I don't know, maybe this was done to make it easier to translate them all into marketable figurines, which even then the actual plastic models here based off these look less fake than the ones we see in the game. I don't know, it's just funky. Side note, I still don't get that when pretty much touching up Future Tone for Mega Mix, which is pretty much just a port of the same game to different consoles, they did a different off-looking art style instead of just using what they had for X in the previous entries, which already looked good? Like, why? This is nice! You know, looking at the release dates of the games in the series, this entry came out the same year as the home console version of Future Tone. From what I'm aware, X also features most of the outfits and modules present in the earlier entries, so my guess is that when making Future Tone, they added in a bunch of new outfits specifically for that game's style and didn't want to potentially redo those in the older art style for Mega Mix. Besides, I think that the visual style for Mega Mix is just some sort of shader over the model, so it was probably just the most convenient way to change the graphics enough to differentiate it from Future Tone and make it feel like more of a separate entry into the series as opposed to a repack. So, right, the story consists of going through all these clouds and learning about human emotions, friendship, and the power of art, but it's not actually that deep, and I'm just giving them credit as I'm sure those are the themes they would have loved to convey with the game if the narrative and writing were larger aspects. Also, side note, any game that gives me 2 or more different dialogue choices to pick from that essentially say the exact same thing is an automatic downside to that game. There are, like, at least 3 instances in this game of a character saying something and then you getting to choose from 2 different dialogue options that practically say, yeah, I think you're right, or that's a good idea, we should do that. You also get asked some extremely rudimentary and easy questions that had me wondering if Miku was going to start asking me to recite all the primary colors, count to 10, or fit wood blocks into holes of the same shape. Like, there's this one bit I remember where one of the characters, I think it was Mako, where she's like, oh, okay, yeah, which accessory do you think would fit better with the dog ears? And the 2 options are like, a guitar or a dog tail. And I see the 2 options, and I obviously pick the banjo to see what happens, because that's obviously the most funny thing to do, and then she just says, that's not it, there's gotta be a better choice, and that's it! There could have been something funny here, there could have been anything here, and I think this highlights another one of the game's biggest issues, is that it just fails to commit. This game, a lot like me, wants to do a lot of things, but it wants to do so many things it ends up being little more than mediocre in many of these fields. But these characteristics kind of work together in a way that makes it endearing in a certain way that might make other people like it for these specific reasons, such as character, ambition, and relentless devotion proving more important than things like objective quality or good ideas for the most part. What I mean is that there are so many missed opportunities. You have these characters that are loved by millions for their unique designs, memorable songs, and interpretations by so many people, and yet they refuse to do anything with them. And I can understand why, because these characters are intentionally left as blank slates so fans and creators can fill in this void with their own interpretations. I mean, it makes sense that they wouldn't want to try and imply that there is one true Hatsune Miku and that all the other interpretations are wrong. I mean, for Christ's sake, they even have a disclaimer in the game's credits stating that the way everyone is characterized here is not meant to imply that the way they talk here is canon or whatever. Because, like I said, everyone has a different interpretation. You can go up to one person and they'll say, oh, my Miku is actually a butch lesbian with borderline personality disorder that finds solace from the hardship and rejection of the rest of the world through music, and someone else will say, well, actually, my interpretation of Miku is that she's a very cheerful singer that is always trying to show the rest of the world that you need to believe in yourself and your dreams. And then someone else will say, well, to me, Hatsune Miku is a bratty little girl in need of discipline. I'm like, okay, these are all ideas. You all definitely had those thoughts. And while this decision to leave who Miku is up to the audience was great, she, and all the other Vocaloids for that matter, wouldn't have the same following as they do now if it weren't for all the people that gave life to them. At its core, Vocaloids are literally just sound banks for programs that people can use to synthesize vocals for songs and more. But culturally, on a more social level, I've always thought of it as something kind of like a symbiotic relationship. Artists can use these characters to bring attention to their works through the existing fans of these characters, and in return, these people give life to these characters and provide fans with more creations, inspiration, and perspectives into the scene and characters as a whole. I'm not saying that nobody would be a fan of Miku if all media around her were required to fit a certain criteria, because I know I'd still be one, but it would be absurd to say that she would have the same following she does now if people weren't given the creative freedom they currently have. The beauty of Vocaloid, to me at least, is how it gives so many people the ability to speak with a voice other than their own, one that's already widely known and beloved, and to share their own ideas and visions with other people in a creative space. Not using this to their advantage for this game's plot is a massive waste, and at this point I know I'm just rambling on and on about what could have been done with an aspect of the game that was probably entirely completed start to finish in 3 days tops, but it's my video and I get to choose what to waste my time making, okay? With the entire core of the game being going around to the different clouds and learning about these different specific aesthetics and styles, it feels like such a waste to pair that with the most bog standard interpretations of the characters possible. Because all the plot really ends up being is going to a different place and having characters say, Miku, help me learn how to be cute, or Miku, help me learn how to be cool, or Miku, help me learn how to be quirky. We could have had drama, we could have had genuine themes. Instead of the most surface level learning more about specific styles and friendships, we could have had mini plots and story arcs involving each of these. What if we had Miku that ends up being egotistical and vain through fame, but learns about the importance of cooperation and the inherent value each person has through working through a shared dilemma? Or Miku that uses quirkiness to cover up a lack of self-confidence and her own issues with how she perceives herself. I know these might sound more like the mediocre plots of a 14-year-old writer on fanfiction.net, but this would have been a lot more genuine than what we got. And of course, these wouldn't need to be similar in nature to what I mentioned. They don't have to go all needy streamer overload dose whatever on us and make it all about mental illness or something that's meant to be terribly relevant to issues people in the fanbase may have. Even simpler conflicts, like a character wanting to be more elegant due to not being happy with who they are in comparison to others before finding value in who they are, or a character finding themselves torn between performance and styles fans expect from them and what they truly want to do, could feel really genuine and bring a lot of meaning into the game while still keeping the life lessons and core themes of friendship present. Seriously, Sega, if you ever come back with a milk and make another one of these, I'd totally help be your writer. I'd even cut out all the unnecessary profanity and everything. Here's a sample scene to showcase my writing prowess. Oh, you know, I'm really having trouble figuring out how to be elegant. Oh, but don't you see, elegance is all around us. From the alluring sakura. Sakura is the Japanese term for the trees known as cherry blossom trees and other places in the earth that dot snow-covered hills like sprinkles on a really cool birthday cake, to things like the ocean or even the sun setting on a warm summer evening. Okay, but like how the fuck am I supposed to be like a tree if I'm also supposed to dance? Or like, be like an ocean? Well, you see, elegance is in man-made objects and actions too. From an intricately carved blade slicing through the abdomen of an unsuspecting politician to a high-caliber round making its way through the lubricated interior of a bolt-action rifle and careening through the air directly into the heart of an unsuspecting deer, we create scenes of splendor and heart-throbbing, awe-inspiring glory with nothing but our bodies and the tools we wield. Okay! But I digress. So yes, the dialogue sucks, and I'm sorry to whatever underpaid intern was forced to write this entire game's script over the course of a single evening with what was most likely minimal direction. Yes, it's bland and full of missed potential. Yes, it's written like it was intended for 5-year-olds and it can be really alienating. Yes, it causes a lot of tonal dissonance when so many of the songs have lyrics that are sexual in nature or about mental illness. Yes, it doesn't have anything of much value to say, but I still appreciate the fact that it exists. Which is also how I felt about the plot of Neon White. You know what? I brought that game up so many times I honestly think I should just sit down and do a comparison of the two. So first off, if you're wondering, oh, well, which one has the better story? It's Neon White 100%. Don't worry if you haven't played that, because you'll get pretty much everything you need to know in this next minute. And I say that because the plot of Neon White at least has some elements of a good story. Sure, they intentionally dropped the ball with writing the dialogue, but it attempts to be something. Its messages are quite ham-fisted, the characters are all very shallow, and the plot has about as much depth as a Petri dish, but it has everything you would reasonably expect out of a story. It has intrigue, rising action, a complicating incident, moments that actually have an impact on the plot, suspense, you know, the things the story is supposed to have. And I know this game wasn't meant to have a story, but I just felt the need to talk about it anyways. But yes, some other similarities between the two games include character designs that revolve around each character having their own iconic primary color, collecting crystals for arbitrary reasons, like a single stage that looks kind of like this area from Neon White, twinks, and music that you'd get bullied for saying you listen to in public. Anyways, let's talk about something completely different. This game has a photo studio. Why? I don't know. But it's there. How long did the developers spend on it? I also don't know. You know, it's pretty fun, I guess. You can't manually pose any limbs or whatever, which kind of makes sense, since that would probably be really annoying to do with a controller on a console game. But you can select a bunch of different poses, expressions, and backgrounds, along with all the accessories and outfits you unlock. Of course, the first thing I did was recreate that one image macro of the two guys very excitedly pointing at something in the distance. You can also use other screenshots and images on the device as backgrounds. That's neat. It's great for creating images to send to strangers that randomly messaged you on Discord after you've been ignoring them for 2 years. So yeah, the plot goes through all the areas and then that's it. You play all the songs and then basically after that they just say, yeah, I guess we should just do the same thing we were already doing more, and then that's what happens. So all the progress gets reset in all the clouds and you're just supposed to play through them all again. Except wait, the game's better now because you have the harder difficulties unlocked and more modules for neat effects. Still, it's pretty obvious this is just done to pad out length or whatever, but it's still a really odd choice. Like, if they just said, yeah, it's an arcade rhythm game with 30 songs, it would have been fine. People would say, okay, and play it if they wanted to. They know what's there and they'll keep coming back to play the game as long as it's enjoyable and they still find it fun. But when you make it all a linear sequence strung together with dialogue, then it's a story game, so I assume the people at SEGA realized they had a completely different set of expectations than a typical arcade-style game, so they just said, hey, this is a $30 story game that takes 4.5 hours to beat, we need to do something to pad it out, and then they just added everything else in. I don't know if they thought that this would work to make the game feel longer, but instead of it making it feel as though there's more content than there really is, it just makes the deficit even more noticeable as you listen to Love Trial for the 13th time this hour, getting enough points to fill the arbitrary point bar a second time. And I think that's kind of the problem. Don't get me wrong, while I like having this meter in the background as a way to keep progress and give a sense of completion, it kind of makes you feel like you're playing the game just to raise the number instead of, you know, having fun. While I don't really like Future Tone / Mega Mix as much as this one, when you play it because you like it. You're playing the game because it's fun and you have a good time, not because you're trying to fill some sort of quota like you're fighting for the Hatsune Miku Top 100 Listeners tag on this year's Spotify Wrapped. Why did they feel the need to try and do these things to string players along to keep playing the game when they already have a lot of entries in the series that have already proven people simply like the game and enjoyed enough to keep coming back? So yeah, you just play through every song in each cloud again, except the harder difficulties are an option, and if you're getting enough points through accessories and are playing on the harder difficulties, you can actually skip one, which is one of the few times where you actually feel like you're being directly rewarded for doing well. You know, more of this positive reinforcement would have been nice. Another one of this game's big draws is festivals. Basically, you organize these and get to choose a specific sequence of 3 songs to perform in one session. It's another feature that's pretty neat but kind of underbaked. From a game design perspective, they're a pretty good way to supplement the smaller song pool by letting players mix and match what already exists in a different way that lets people get more engagement and mileage out of the game. Although, I will definitely admit that it never gets any less off-putting hearing your favorite songs haphazardly cut in the middle to shorten them, but you know, it's still pretty cool regardless. You probably don't know any of these songs, so I'll make an example here that you can probably relate to and understand. It feels off, right? It's just not right. Even if the cut is done well, it still feels wrong. Hell, they even went through the effort of getting a lot of audio of people doing chants along to, from what I'm aware, most of the songs in the game. Might just be placebo, but I swear there's also an audio filter on these festivals to make the music sound like it's coming from a physical space in relation to you as opposed to your headset, which is also quite cool. I can appreciate the effort given to recreate the concert experience without having to sit next to really sweaty people or stay in line for 6 or so hours while it's raining outside so you can buy the keychain you really want to get from the merch stand. And, whoa, okay, yeah, that's a kitchen knife. I bet you thought I was going to show another piece of merchandise, huh? You moron. It's also considerably cheaper, which is quite nice. So that's that feature. You keep getting requests for more festivals as you gain more voltage and complete the songs again. It's really a shame they couldn't find anything in the middle between babying the player through all the game's content at a really slow pace and just dumping it all at you at once, though. Anyways, a feature that actually matters now with the inclusion of the harder difficulties, unless you're absolutely abysmally bad at the game, is the accessory and outfit bonuses. Like I touched on earlier, all the outfits in the game have a perk they give you when you have them equipped and a 20% aura bonus if it corresponds to the cloud you're in. On the other hand, the bonus persists regardless of whether it matches the area you're in. This can actually make for some really neat instances where it's better to have a specific perk than the bonus, but a lot of the bonuses are really not too important. They range from things like giving voltage rate or point bonuses for combos of certain lengths to things like making button timing more forgiving during certain parts of the song, dropping more accessories or other outfits, or less useful things like always triggering the chance star if you have the gauge filled regardless of whether you hit it or not. However, I will note that the transformation scenes are all very well timed for the songs, with chance time usually occupying an important portion of the song and the actual change occurring during a crescendo or equally important section, which, combined with the audio effects and visuals, actually leads to these moments feeling really cool. I mean, at least until you actually see the outfit they change into, but that's not important. And it is always weird when you're playing the game and you just go, huh, where'd all their clothes go? But I'm giving them comedy points for that because it's funny to imagine someone playing this in a public setting and having someone else walk in right as this happens. Also, side note, being a localizer for this game must have been fucking wild. I can just imagine some random SEGA worker seeing what they needed to translate and try to make understandable for audiences outside of Japan. Also, side note, there's this one song that I've always been legitimately baffled that they somehow managed to fit into this game with a T for teen rating and the labels of lyrics, suggestive themes. Well, I mean, not always. I didn't understand what it was about when I first played it. I thought it was a song about a pet hamster. Well, regardless though, look at this. Look at this in Re. How did they get this in? Did the ESRB just see Japan's rating for the game, do a quick glance, and say, yeah, that looks about right, not accounting for cultural differences? Because I know in Japan, topics like this are just less explicit than in the United States, but it's odd. Like, did SEGA slip them 10 billion yen just to cover it up? Also, another side note, this game made me feel some things that I had never felt before when I was 11. I specifically remember getting this specific change and kind of panicking and thinking, oh god, he's hot, and spending the rest of the day crying because I thought that the Hatsune Miku video game I bought was going to send me to hell, but I didn't want to talk to my parents about it because I thought they'd lambast me for it as well, or tell me that I couldn't like Vocaloid anymore, which was interesting. Anyway, sorry for the trauma dump, but I felt like bringing that up. Leave a comment if you've also gone through something similar or whatever so I can get bonus points for the algorithm and you can healthily release some random ass thing you've had weighing on your conscience for years. Anyways, and here's game design sin number 2. You can't even get the best results and all the maximum rewards for the songs unless you do a bunch of the costume things. This is kind of debatable as a design sin, but it's still dumb that even if you get a perfect result with no missed notes and a single combo throughout, you'll still be off from the highest reward tier. I get that this is to get you to play dress up and actually utilize that feature, but it's weird to play literally perfectly and yet still get mediocre results. But keep in mind that outfit customization is a major feature, so whatever. I guess it's just my fault for not engaging with it. I just don't like playing the game when whatever character currently on screen looks like they just got beaten up by a gang of clowns in the prop closet. Especially because, like, the designs are good. Look at her, she's perfect. There are literally no changes needed here. Look at all of them, they're all great. And throw in the fact that the other outfit designs are, for the most part, really well done, and it's just like, why? Seriously. Don't look at this and try to tell me with a straight face this is more aesthetically pleasing than this. I mean, I guess it's okay. It's just that with a game with gameplay as simple as this at its core, it's hard to incentivize certain strategies and features without subsequently taking away from what other mechanics there are. They had to do something to the gameplay to make the accessories and outfits actually worth using, and that ended up making the game just less viable without them. And oh boy, do I have a lot to say about accessories. First off, why are they so dumb? Like, most of these don't even look good to begin with. So you get them completely randomly as a random chance drop after finishing a song. The amount of items you get after finishing a song is based off of the amount of additional voltage bar clears you have by the end of the song, basically just corresponding to percents over the amount required to pass. Accessories are all coded to certain styles as well, and this also raises some questions. How come the white bunny ears are elegant, but the white bunny tail is quirky? How come this pair of dog ears is elegant, but this other color of dog ears isn't? But you need to coordinate these sets for the most points. You go for the aura bonuses related to the cloud you're in, but if you don't have any that fit, which is entirely possible because they're dropped infrequently and aren't even guaranteed to be for the cloud you're in, you can just go for set bonuses. And a lot of these don't even make much sense either. Like, there's Blue Patch Party, which you get for using the blue eye patch and the party hat. Sure, okay, why not? And a lot of the ones you'd expect to work just don't. Like I mentioned earlier, the bunny accessories are different styles, so they don't work. So you're sometimes going with one of the coordinated set bonuses not corresponding to the style, and then two that fit the style and give you the aura bonus points, even though they don't correspond to anything. The scenario is pretty much the most strategy this feature is ever going to involve. You can't do two different set bonuses either, so there's a little less room for actual planning and improvisation there. And here's the thing, even when you do get them right, and I know I've said this already, it still looks bad! It just feels pointless, really. Once you find a good combo or the best set, you never don't use it until you end up finding something better, which even then just means you'll stick with that set forever. I should also mention there are perfect combos, one for each set, and they all consist of 4 cloud-specific accessories that are all part of a matching set. Some of these are pretty obvious, like the classic and cute sets, but the rest are a little bit off, like this one for cool, which took me forever to find. Would you have guessed that? No. I know you wouldn't have. And I am certain of that because I played this game religiously for a while, and I never thought of that despite having every single prop and possessing a tendency to smash literally every single combination together like some sort of understimulated kid at a Thanksgiving at the neighbor's house. And yes, I still think it's odd that you can play absolutely terribly but still get the best rating solely through accessory bonuses. It's just a matter of waiting to randomly get the right things until you get them and win forever. It's just such an underbaked feature. But it's not even really like you're going to need to maximize these things 90% of the time. Even even doing something like making the accessories have a limited amount of uses, so you have to make do with what you have and find new combinations alongside making them more common to get would mix things up in terms of gameplay by a large amount. But it's not like that's really much of an option either with how small the pool of accessories actually is. It's just weird. They wanted it to be a big thing, but it's just so underbaked and irrelevant to the game as a whole. Getting the maximum voltage rate bonuses only really matter for if you want to get all the possible rewards at the end of a song or are trying to fill up the crystal thresholds easier, or finally if you're playing one of the more difficult songs and are just having trouble passing. So yes, despite everything, this is still a feature that's rarely important. What's most likely is that you'll just use one of the modules that increases your likelihood of finding other new modules, or something that makes timing easier or gives you some points for failed notes on the hardest songs. It's in this kind of flux of the feature not mattering enough for it to make an impact 90% of the time, but still having enough value to the point where it's just there and you have to engage with it anyways. You know, it's weird. You can tell they had some good ideas, but just lacked the resources or time to do the things that could have made these features work. Things like the harder difficulties, giving more items at the end of each song when played well, and the costume stuff feels like a basic framework or test for a feature that would have been expanded in a sequel we never ended up getting. And randomness can still make the game more difficult if you just flat out don't get any modules related to the clouds you're in. I was in the final area and had exactly one outfit that fit the category. One thing I should mention is that every song, from what I'm aware, has its own module corresponding to it. If you use another with the ability that raises your chance of getting these rare modules, you can actually raise your likelihood of getting these things. Like I said, one of the few areas where some sort of strategy is involved when there should be much more. Because that's really what this game feels like. A proof of concept for some sort of grand scale game of this type. A game with features and design choices meant for a game with 5 times more content than it currently has. Like unlocking these special events where you get to play the same songs more and then unlock an outfit that does the same thing a different one already does. It kind of hurts to see the missed potential, but I still love this game regardless. Here, for another feature that doesn't really make much sense. The gifting feature. Characters will just demand gifts. Like, a lot. You'll finish a song and they'll say, "Wow, singing is quite hard. I think a charcoal grill would be just the thing I need to get all my energy back." And if you say, sorry Miku, I don't actually happen to have a charcoal grill to give out right now, she'll get all mad and go like, "Oh, wow. I thought we were friends? Like, what?" And even when you don't get flat out demanded to give them gifts, you'll still get these subtle hints where one of them says, "Wow, this room is kind of boring. If only there were some cool things we could use to decorate." I'll admit that I find this really funny, and having a character ask for something to make the room more lively only to get given a hamburger and get really sad looking and say something like, "Oh, this isn't really what I meant," hasn't gotten old even after playing this game over a lot of years. Something else this game confirms is that everyone is an egomaniac. Literally every single character, upon being given something made in their image, will all go like, "Oh man, this is great, you have amazing taste." Like, who even decided this game needed the gift feature anyways? It takes so long to get these friendship levels up. I mean, sure, Miku will say, "Wow, thanks, we're such good friends," as you hand over her 5th deluxe rice cooker of the day, but that's it. Like, you'll get these cutscenes where you get the friendship level up where a character says, "Wow, thanks for the gifts, you're a cool friend," and then that's it. Also, on the topic of cutscenes, there are easily dozens of random-ass cutscenes you get by gifting characters random things. Like, eating ice cream, drawing things, looking at goldfish. Like, the menus don't even work properly. Why did you add in things like this before even fixing those? I forgot how many of these there were. The concept of someone be quiet! The concept of someone just walking up to you and saying, "Hey, here's a washing machine. Happy birthday. I know you really wanted one." I had no idea. I forgot there were so many of these. I don't know why they're all so, like, over-animated. Everybody looks like they're at a kid's show, like this is some sort of Teletubbies thing going on. Like, they're all like, every character here is a shark and they're gonna die if they don't move enough. Wait. Oh, I forgot! There's just... 48%?! Seriously, look at how many of these there are! Like, they had to sort it into 2 categories. Why are there separate cutscenes for drinking orange juice versus drinking melon soda? Why is... I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. 28%. Oh my god, I only have, like... There are there are multiple cutscenes you get per thing. So there are, like, I don't know, 5? I really... I don't know. 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 want to see what this game's, like, development time looked like. I know this couldn't have been, like, too long, but I mean... No other game does this. It's just... It's like 20 seconds, whatever. I gotta stop recording this. This video runtime is gonna be like 55 minutes as is before I even add in all these dumbass live segments. What's this? There are just so many different aspects of this game that I can only look at and think, what is the purpose of this? Why is this here? Why do they feel the need to give him 5 different Speedo outfit variants? Was this necessary in any way? Was this proven to make the game more enjoyable to play when played by playtesters? There are like probably 300 or so different outfits in this game, but I can't even quick restart. I just don't get it. Why does he have 30 or so outfits if he only has a single song? And if they were running a long time, why do the characters do so much stuff? Seriously, stay on the menu for 30 seconds and whoever is there will start making some gestures or stretching or whatever. Here's some sped up footage of this for your entertainment. And I think they try to directly interact with you at times. I wasn't sure what Luca was saying since I don't speak Japanese, but I think she was trying to get me to say something based on her movements. So like I plugged in my microphone and tried to respond but couldn't get it to work. Is my microphone even on? Sound devices. Do these earbuds have a microphone? Oh my god, stop talking! How do I even know if it's working? Okay, wait. No, don't do this, do the other thing. The other thing? Come on. I'm gonna lose it. Yeah! 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 Yes! Yeah! Fuck. How do it feels like I'm supposed to say something. Oh my god, no! Do the thing, do the thing. Yeah! Yeah! Yes! Yes! Hi! Hi! Yes! Yes! Hi! Oh my whatever. This isn't important. This isn't even important anyways. You also unlock all these different rooms by completing the game. You can't really decorate them, but you can see all the gifts you've recently given to characters in the background, which is also pretty funny on what you give. Why did they feel the need to make all these homerooms? Why are they all fully modeled if you only ever see more than one wall of it in the selection menu? I mean, I enjoy the variety and the limited customization there is, but still, it's just odd. Also, as I'm writing this script, she's literally staring at me from my second monitor and keeps making these noises that are making it really distracting and hard to focus writing these notes. Also, you can apparently headpat the characters. I didn't know this was a feature. I only found out when I saw it mentioned on a Common Sense Media review of this game. Ages 7 and up. My kindergarten 5th grade class loves Hatsune Miku. This game is perfect. Nothing bad about it, just a normal game. If you think my kid had a history of watching sexually inappropriate shows without permission and based on this game's rating, well, they won't even be able to pay attention. This title has great role models, great messages, easy to play / use. Kids say, age 7 up, age 9 and up, age 14 up. Miku is the best! Vocaloid is better than Justin Bieber, so if you like Vocaloid, play this and cancel Bieber! 3 years ago, ages 7 and up. Songs have lyrics related to suicide, depression, sexual themes. The one weird thing is that you can pet characters' head and they just shake their heads until they don't want to rub anymore. There's nothing wrong with that, it's just kind of odd. It's just kind of odd. I don't know if this is a normal thing in Japan, I'm not really sure if this is a cultural thing or not. I tried googling cultural relevancy of head patting in modern day Japan, but not much came up. And now that we're even on the topic, what makes for a good head pat anyways? I mean, now is as good of a time as ever, right? So, there are a lot of different aspects that contribute to the quality, but first, before anything else, you need to understand the head shape of the person you're about to pat. Is it smooth? Is it wide and round, or is it pointy? Are chunks of it missing? If so, you should probably take the person in question to a hospital. The second thing of note is the hair of the individual in question. What's their hair like? Is it straight and thin, or messy and fluffy? Does it go down past the neck? How about the shoulders? Is the hair swooped over one way, parted in the corner? Are they bald? I hate to break it to you, but if they're bald, you can't do it right. The technique is also important. If you've ever been head patted by someone who simply kept raising their hand and putting it back down on your head, you were head patted incorrectly. Ideally, you softly lower your hand on the head, make a flat yet slightly curved shape with your hand, and then begin to slowly move your hand in a circular motion around the center of the head. This is not a good head pat. This is also not a good head pat. It might seem easy to some, it might seem difficult to others, but there's undeniably an art to it. Anyways, none of this matters in the slightest since you're playing a PlayStation game and the controller doesn't support that kind of stuff, so you're just gonna tap the pad. Yes, you don't even get to rub back and forth to ruffle the hair or whatever. It sucks because this is a massively underdeveloped feature and because I would absolutely buy a $60 game for the sole reason of letting me head pat Kaido. This is actually one of the benefits of owning a Fuwa, as it's the closest you'll ever get to giving best boy head pats for real, unless you get into drug-reduced hallucinations or psychosis like I mentioned in the Streets of Rogue video, but I don't particularly feel like introducing people to things that can destroy their perception of reality for the sake of hallucinating head patting anime characters. And back to gifts. I didn't even realize this, but friendship levels actually impact gameplay. The higher your friendship level, the more the rate-up notes you'll get while playing, and I'm pretty sure that the amount of points you need to get for event requests or some other statistic is also impacted by this. I wanted to see what the max friend rank was, because even after all these years of playing, I haven't gotten it. So I sat there, and I gave different characters gifts for a bit, but then I focused on Miku. And I sat there for 20 minutes, doing, this and nothing else, and I got to level 6. And she said the exact same thing she said when I got to level 4. So I said, oh yeah, fuck that, I'm gonna figure that out another time, I guess, and went on and did something else. It is really funny to see all the gifts in the background because you'll end up with half a shelf full of spaghetti, ice cream, or have 6 or so dishwashers on the floor. You can also pretty easily tell who I was trying to get to be better friends with due to all the gifts in the background. Right, this game does actually have an ending. I just forgot to add it earlier. After the game just tells you to play through it again, you fill up the meters, and then you unlock a final song, and then you play the final song, and Miku's like, wow, what a journey. We learned so much about being human and the power of friendship, and then the credits roll. Okay, another side note, trying to 100% this game is a pain in the ass for a few reasons, which is kind of surprising due to the smaller song pool. After you actually beat the finale, you get a bunch more modes for each song, so while you used to have the easy, medium, hard, and extreme requests for each song, you also have like 3 or more so for each one now. So if you want to get the completion marks, you'll need to play through all these modes, which are the exact same song but with difficulty effects added, like the notes flying onto the screen faster, or at a wonky angle, or whatever else they came up with. These can range from kind of difficult to just really not fun at all to extremely really impossibly difficult, but you can still just nullify these effects entirely with certain outfits, so like, yet again, another kind of pointless feature, where the only real thing going on here is you using a different outfit to nullify the effects to just play it like a normal song again. However, getting the highest ranking on the extreme effect requests does mean you need to choose between playing almost perfectly without any effects or making use of a different effect for extra points while also dealing with the negative modifiers, which is another one of the few instances where you need to put some thought into what you use. Also, completing a song on normal or whatever doesn't actually mark it as completed on easy, which is also really annoying since easy isn't terribly engaging, as we've discussed previously, and it just means doing the same thing more in a less interesting way. Also, you have no way of knowing what modules are missing, let alone the characters they're for or if they're rare or not. You just get this percentage on the stats page, which tells you absolutely nothing, so you can only guess. It's a genuinely miserable mechanic if you're actually trying to get all of them, but whatever. The achievements are also pretty vague and just say, get the title of the same name, but you don't get any insight as to what those titles are even called or how to get them, let alone any actual descriptions. So, ultimately, yes. The game feels rushed because of the lack of basic quality of life features, its release relative to the future tone home version, the relatively small content pool, and a lot of things feeling really underbaked, but why would there be a concert editor, a photo studio, and so many gift models if they didn't have much time? Wouldn't it have been a better idea to focus that development time on intuitive menus or other more important things? Like, why does it have PlayStation VR support? No, I'm not getting one just for this video. And most of all, why is it called the safe rating if it still takes away your combo? I'm guessing it has something to do with not losing any health in the arcade game, but I haven't actually gone back and checked that yet, so what you're seeing right now might not line up with what I'm saying. Anyways, Yes, the menus don't make sense. I don't understand why every time I press the button to restart a song, it brings me back to a screen where I can do nothing besides change the button sound effects for each note type, nor do I understand why even then you can just go like, whoops, I did the wrong combo. I'll go back to the dress up screen and then bam, you're back at the song select, since leaving this menu takes you all the way back to there for some reason. Or why there's a button for changing the stage and the setup for every single song despite the fact that you never use it outside of events. Really, it's a mismatch of a bunch of different things added together in an endearing and mixed package. Yes, things like the annoying menus are an objective downside, but this is why I like this game so much. It's why I like it more than Future Tone and Mega Mix. It's why I come back to it time and time again, because it has character. Every flaw, every imperfection, every single objectively bad decision bundled within it merges with all the others to form some sort of uniquely imperfect and quirky game. Kind of like that blobfish photo you've probably seen somewhere on the internet before. And much like a dead blobfish, there's a lot to dissect and extract from it. It's this kind of perfect medley of great gameplay and incredible music mixed with the most ham-fisted story possible and a smorgasbord of completely inessential features that make it all feel like a misguided fever dream of a game. As odd as this may sound, I like it because it feels like an indie game that got made by some completely random strangers on the internet without any overseeing. Despite being made by a large studio, it feels like you can make out 10 or so people all pressing against the frosted glass window, each showing their own obsessive contributions and the features they spent day and night adding, much to the dismay of the other people that were working on other things. Like one group was working on the gameplay and animations, yet there were some other overly dedicated people also in the group that instead decided to pour all their time into adding a bunch of really unnecessary gifting mechanics because they felt like it. It feels like the work of a few obsessive individuals as opposed to a larger studio, and that's not something I've really seen in any other games like this. Above all else, it feels like it was made by people that legitimately enjoyed what they were making, like they had all these ideas of what they wanted to deliver, what they thought the fans would like the most, and they chased that to the end, even if it led to a really disjointed and inconsistent final product. So long as you don't look at the store page and see the extra stuff you can buy. $12.99 US for all the outfits, $7.99 for all the accessories. Are you kidding? Hey though, there's a free cabin attendant module you can download as a partnership with some airline I've never heard of. Anyways, maybe that's all a front. Maybe it was just a series of methodical consumer surveys and polls on what people would like the most bundled together with this facade of cheerfulness, bright colors, and quirky features meant to mask how impassively the studio making this really was. And if that were the case, then I commend them for actually being able to fool me. But I kind of doubt that. I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, but this game came into my life at a very strange and influential period of time. Looking back, I can see how pieces of media, series, and certain characters are practically designed to suck up these kinds of hopeless and lost people, but damn if it didn't change me, even though I was shut in the boxed-in world I had at the time. As cliche and downright psychotic as it may sound, Miku showed me that it was okay to like things that others would mock me for, that it was okay to be different, and that just because other people would relentlessly bash me for how I found meaning in my life didn't necessarily mean there was anything wrong with it. All this, the themes about doing your own thing, going your own way, and so many other of the themes present in the music spoke to me on a level nothing else had before. Whether many of these songs were made to be true to the author's heart or just for the intent of making something catchy that would sell well, it didn't stop me from finding meaning in them and taking those songs and themes to heart as some of the few things that made me feel content with who I was. So really, regardless of whether or not this was made with the sole intent of being a product or not, I found a lot of meaning in it. Manufactured or not, it spoke to me and gave me hope. This could have just still been a catalyst that I tend to assume had a lot more of an impact on some of the most transformative years of my life, and I know it's only one of many things that shaped me, but it still undoubtedly had a large part in making me who I am today. Am I a bit sad that the later entries we got felt a little more soulless than this one and lacked the character and quirkiness? Absolutely. Am I disappointed that we'll most likely never get another actual Project Diva game because SEGA made a mobile gacha game in the vein of this that they've probably made a bajillion trillion dollars off of now that they've tasted the gacha game money? Oh, absolutely. But that's a 4-track rhythm game with visual novel elements. I get that it has similar qualities and matching genres, but that doesn't mean it's the same thing. This is not this. This is not this. If I wanted mediocre gameplay and an insanely obsessive and somewhat off-putting fanbase, even compared to Miku's, I'd be on Newgrounds playing Friday Night Funkin', okay? Regardless, I'm sure if you had internet access as a child, you also had something like this. Not necessarily Vocaloid, not even necessarily music, but something that broke through that level of detachedness you had to what you saw on screen, where it felt like you were legitimately being invited to discover something new, and no, being 5 and having Dora the Explorer tell you to talk to the TV doesn't count. Nice try though. Maybe it was a community, maybe it was a genre, maybe it was an entire medium, but it's an odd feeling to find yourself so touched by something you would have never thought is more than a piece of media. And if you're like me, you're probably really self-conscious about your interests. You have an internal audience 10 times more aggressive and demeaning than even some of your biggest detractors. Learning to openly like your niche and embarrassing interests is part of the process of finding the things you truly like. This can take a short time for some people, a few months for others, and years or even decades for others. And sometimes, even after all that, you need to push yourself to make a 55-minute long YouTube video talking about the things you're still partially embarrassed to be a fan of to finally get over it. So yes, these songs mean a lot to me. I still have an old CD I burnt a lot of these songs onto from when I was 11 in my closet, and I have a very specific memory of this song as well, too. It was the 4th of July, 2018, and there was a big fireworks display going on not too far from my house. So we set up a ladder and went onto the roof to watch, and I was all like, cool, I'm gonna bring my phone and listen to Miku. And my dad suddenly looked really perturbed and said, with headphones, right? And then I went, yes, Dad, I'm not gonna make you listen to it as well, okay? And then he seemed pretty relieved after that. Anyways, but I just remember sitting up there and watching the fireworks. The same thing I'd done year after year, but it felt new because I had something new, something that managed to add a layer of novelty and meaning to my increasingly boring everyday life. It might just seem like mindless consumerism and brand product placement to some, but I wanted to show others just how you end up such a large fan of these things. You might not get it at all. In fact, you might even be reacting to this the same way I react to those serial killer confession videos where no matter how much you try and wrap your head around their mindset, it just doesn't make sense, and I'm okay with that. Because I, honest to God, know there's not much I can do to convey just how comforting this game is to me. And I know this might not be what you expected, and you might be thinking something like, I thought this was supposed to be a funny video, why is the crazy man talking about his life backstory nearing the end of a video that starts out seeming genuine before then seeming sarcastic and moving back around to genuinity, and then a little bit of self-deprecation and awareness wrapped up in so many layers of unnecessary writing and personal anecdotes mixed in with jokes to the point where figuring out what I actually mean might feel like going through one of those marble maze ball toys, but I've realized conveying how you feel about something is a lot more than just explaining what you like about it, and that sometimes being yourself and showing your interests looks like acting like an idiot in front of strangers. Sometimes it looks like coming off as obsessive and deranged. Because at the end of the day, as long as you've sat through all of this and can at least somewhat understand what I'm thinking right now, even if you can't relate to it, I'm happy. I didn't really make this video to talk about a game as much as I made it to share with other people just how much the seemingly meaningless and dumb can mean to others. So yes, it has this place in my heart where it doesn't really feel like a game as much of a place of refuge, where no matter what's going on in the world outside, no matter what year it is or how long it's been, no matter what I've been through since then, no matter if my life's objectively worse than it was back in 2018, and no matter if I never feel that same kind of happiness and legitimate contentment or genuine joy as I did back then, where it is forever July, where I'm back in that summer day where we first met.